Big agriculture buried these vegetables, pushing them aside for easy travel and long shelf life. But a secret society of gardeners kept them alive for a reason. These heirloom survivors are 10 times stronger than anything you'll find in a supermarket, and their stories are built on hunger, survival, and a quiet defiance of convenience. Imagine a wooden farmhouse kitchen, the air thick with the scent of simmering sauce. The Amish paste, a jar full of winter. Baskets of Amish paste tomatoes are being boiled down, not for a quick dinner, but for a whole winter's survival. These aren't the watery, flavorless spheres you find in the supermarket today. This is a tomato bred for substance. The Amish paste is thick and meaty, with dense flesh and barely any seeds, built purely for cooking and long-term endurance. For the Pennsylvania communities who saved it, its reliability was its greatest virtue. Each massive harvest meant rows of preserved sauce, comfort, tradition, and sustenance, sealed inside glass jars, ready to last through long, lean winters when fresh food was scarce. It was an act of faith against scarcity. While industrial agriculture pushed for uniform, hybrid crops that were easy to transport, the Amish resisted. They saved the seeds by hand, year after year, preserving this magnificent heirloom. And that's why it survives today, not just as a gardener's favorite for its sweetness and versatility, but as a living legacy of a community that chose sustainability above fleeting convenience. But if the Amish paste was about quiet, patient strength, our next crop is a jolt of fire and color, carrying a powerful, nearly forgotten story rooted in the crowded kitchens of the city. The fish pepper, Chesapeake's hidden flame. A pepper with stripes? Believe it or not, the fish pepper isn't just spicy, it's a little work of art. It grows with vivid streaks of cream, green, and red, looking almost as if a painter brushed each pod by hand. But this beauty carries a powerful story, rooted deep in the culinary history of the Chesapeake region. In the 19th century, African-American communities cultivated the fish pepper, relying on its versatile heat as a key ingredient in local oyster and crab houses, particularly in Baltimore. This pepper was never sold in commercial seed catalogs or large markets. It lived quietly in back alley gardens and kitchen traditions, passed down hand to hand across generations. It was a cultural heirloom, preserved by necessity and taste, not by corporations. Young pale peppers offered a gentle bite to stews, while mature, fiery red ones brought serious heat to sauces. Its near disappearance in the 20th century wasn't due to a lack of flavor, but because industrial farming favored uniform crops that were easier to store. The bold striped pepper was simply too different. Thankfully, dedicated seed savers rescued it, allowing this striking plant to thrive again. The fish pepper isn't just food. It's a living memory of resilience, culture, and survival on a plate. We leave the spice of the hidden back alleys now and look up to a giant of the farm. A towering plant with a head the size of a wagon wheel that became the key to surviving winter. The mammoth gray towering sentinel of the 1800s. If you were walking through an old homestead garden in the 1800s, one plant would have literally towered over you. The mammoth gray sunflower, standing at heights up to 14 feet, with golden heads so wide they could rival a wagon wheel. These plants were far more than decoration. They were a true survival companion. For generations, farmers planted them not only for their imposing beauty, but also for their sheer practicality. Each gigantic head was packed with protein-rich seeds that fed both families and livestock. During lean times, some homesteads even roasted and brewed the seeds as a substitute for coffee when real beans were scarce. The strong, woody stalks served as makeshift fencing, while the towering plants provided essential shade for the beans and cucumbers growing at their feet. The sunflower patch, in this way, became both pantry and protection. Despite the modern rise of hybrid crops bred for smallness and uniformity, this giant heirloom endured. It was quietly passed down through seed savers who understood the true value of a plant that offered such reliable abundance and absolute force of nature. But if the sunflower ruled the sky with its golden head, our next heirloom was a serpent in the dirt, a tenacious bean that refused to quit, even when the soil was bone dry. Rattlesnake beans, the coiled defiance. There's an heirloom bean whose name tells you everything you need to know about its appearance: the rattlesnake pole bean. Named for the distinctive purple streaks that curl along its long green pods, this plant doesn't just look striking. It earned its reputation as a survivor. Farmers across the American South once depended on it because it produced food when little else would. The vines grew robustly, often reaching 10 feet tall, snaking up poles, fences, or even corn stalks, and kept bearing beans long after more delicate varieties had withered in the heat. Even in poor soil, when drought or exhaustion robbed the land of fertility, the rattlesnake pole bean pushed on, filling baskets with pods that could be eaten fresh, cooked into hearty stews, or dried for secure winter storage. This wasn't just resilience. It was a defiant persistence written into the plant's character. Generations of homesteaders saved these seeds, knowing they could be counted on when conditions turned harsh, while modern agriculture later shifted towards smaller, uniform snap beans better suited for transport. The rattlesnake pole bean endured. Once nearly lost, it now climbs and curls in backyards, with the same defiant spirit that carried it through centuries. Beneath those climbing vines, another quiet survivor was busy hiding a golden heart, a vegetable that stored endurance all winter long. The long pie pumpkin, New England's winter bank. Shaped like an oversized zucchini, this plain-skinned heirloom hides one of New England's most trusted survival secrets: the long pie pumpkin. This was a vegetable prized not for its flash, but for the quiet endurance hidden beneath its humble skin. In the 1800s, New England families depended on long pie pumpkins to see them through the harshest winters. While most squashes spoiled quickly in storage, these kept for months in cool cellars, stacked in neat rows like insurance against hunger. The longer they rested, the sweeter their deep orange flesh became, making them absolutely perfect for the pies and stews that warmed households when snow sealed the countryside. Imagine candle-lit kitchens on frigid nights, where a slice of long pie was baked into a golden dessert, bringing comfort and essential calories when both were desperately needed. Their ability to last told a powerful story. They were crops that could be trusted when nothing else was certain. While modern supermarkets shifted toward rounder, standardized varieties, this heirloom survived thanks to gardeners who recognized its quiet, unassuming strength. It remains living proof that a vegetable's true beauty isn't always about appearance, but the survival story it carries into the winter. And while the pumpkin guarded its sweetness deep in the cold cellar, we follow a route that offers not just one source of food, but two. A single plant that guarantees 10 pounds of pure security. Beauregard sweet potato, the 10-pound security. Some heirloom crops are old, but others become immediate legends through sheer abundance. A single Beauregard sweet potato plant can yield up to 10 pounds of tubers, transforming a humble garden patch into a secure store of food. This variety quickly spread across the world for one simple reason: generosity. Its deep orange flesh, rich in natural sweetness and beta-carotene, is perfect for pies, roasting, or fries. But the Beauregard's genius lies in its versatility. Even above the ground, its leafy vines and foliage are edible, offering families a steady source of greens when other vegetables were scarce. In times of hardship, this meant nothing went to waste. Both the roots and the leaves could sustain entire households. Farmers came to see the Beauregard as a kind of natural insurance policy. It proved its hardiness by thriving in poor soils and during droughts, when less resilient crops struggled. In lean years, these sweet potatoes meant survival. Through centuries of cultivation, this single variety embodies nutrition and endurance, carrying the wisdom of the past into modern farming. But while the sweet potato was a crop of staggering abundance, our next heirloom is a humble green, one that took root in the founding gardens of America and defied the cold with a simple, brilliant trick: tennis ball lettuce, Jefferson's winter salad. In the garden, its round, butter-soft leaves might look unassuming, almost modest. Yet the tennis ball lettuce carries a leafy legacy stretching back to the 1700s. It was famously grown and praised by Thomas Jefferson himself in the gardens of Monticello, who valued its tender leaves and dependable growth. Unlike modern supermarket lettuces, which are genetically engineered for transport and shelf life, This heirloom was cultivated purely for flavor and resilience. Early American families enjoyed it fresh in salads, of course, but they also needed a way to defy the winter months. Their solution was simple but effective. They pickled it. They packed the leaves in jars of brine to carry them through the harshest cold. What transformed this humble green into a survival food wasn't its taste alone, but its impressive adaptability. It flourished in colonial gardens without chemical fertilizers or pesticides, proving that strength could be bred by necessity alone. Centuries later, growers still prize the tennis ball for the same reasons: tenderness, reliability, and a history that connects the modern dinner plate directly to America's earliest farms. Its survival reminds us that even humble greens carry a lineage of resilience. But we leave the temperate gardens of the South now for the absolute harshest climates, where a vegetable stood tall, a massive stalk that offered rich, onion-like flavor through the snow. Giant Musselburgh leek. Strength against the snow. In the blustery, frosty fields of Scotland, farmers came to rely on a vegetable that could endure bitter winds and still deliver a rich, onion-like flavor. The giant Musselburgh leek. Its thick, sturdy stalks and broad leaves weren't just a staple in soups, they were a symbol of defiance against the harsh, unforgiving cold. For generations, this leek was the winter green that never failed, bridging the gap between seasons when almost all fresh food was scarce. Standing tall at up to 30 inches, the Musselburgh became a fixture in Scottish working-class kitchens, simmered into broths and stews that provided essential warmth and calories. Unlike fragile onions, which could wither, this leek endured snow and severe frost, allowing families to harvest fresh vegetables long after other gardens had gone completely silent. That staying power meant green, nutritious food was still possible in the depths of winter. Its reputation for hardiness spread far beyond the British Isles, finding its way into traditional recipes worldwide. The giant Musselburgh isn't flashy, and it certainly isn't delicate. It's sturdy, generous, and was simply built to last. We leave the strength of the stalk for a different kind of spectacle, a European giant with a swollen, alien-like bulb that could grow bigger than a child's head. Superschmelz kohlrabi, the tender alien. At first glance, the Superschmelz kohlrabi looks like a vegetable from another world. Its swollen pale green stem can grow larger than a child's head, tipping the scales at over 8 pounds each. It is a spectacle of the garden, yet despite its monstrous size, this German heirloom is anything but tough. Its flesh remains surprisingly crisp, tender, and delicately sweet. Whether eaten raw in crunchy slices or roasted slowly until it caramelizes, farmers in Central Europe prize the Superschmelz not just for its flavor, but for its remarkable utility. Unlike more fragile crops, this kohlrabi thrived in cool conditions and stored exceptionally well in cellars, enduring months after harvest. In the heart of winter, a family could pull a single bulb from storage and feed an entire household for days. In times when survival hinged entirely on resourcefulness, the Superschmelz was more than a vegetable. It was absolute security against hunger. Even today, gardeners marvel at its resilience, rewarding patience with one of the most generous harvests a garden can offer. It is living proof that sometimes the strangest-looking crops are the most dependable and generous allies. And if the kohlrabi's monstrous size wasn't impressive enough, our next crop would soon take size to a fiery extreme, a pepper that redefined what heat could look like by growing over half a foot long. Jalapeno gigante. Fire meets abundance. From the delicate sweetness of kohlrabi, we now move into the fiery world of peppers. Though this next variety isn't just about heat, it's about sheer scale. The jalapeno gigante absolutely lives up to its name, with peppers that can grow over 6 inches long, completely dwarfing the standard varieties most people are familiar with. These peppers are bold and bright, but what makes the gigante truly remarkable isn't its size alone. It's its unstoppable productivity. Farmers often find their plants so heavily laden that the branches require staking to keep them from bowing under the sheer weight of the harvest. The peppers themselves strike a perfect balance, spicy enough to bring life to a dish, yet mild enough for stuffing, grilling, or pickling whole. For communities that relied on peppers not only for flavor but also for year-round preservation, this meant food security. A single harvest could be dried, smoked, or stored, providing flavor all year long. And unlike smaller jalapenos that quickly shrivel, the Gigante remains meaty and full-bodied, making it the perfect choice for preservation. But while the Jalapeno Gigante brought fire to the table, our journey takes a softer, earthier turn to an early American pioneer squash whose golden flesh was the absolute cornerstone of comfort in the coldest New England winters. Boston marrow squash, pioneer's golden comfort. In the gardens of early America, few crops were as trusted and relied upon as the Boston marrow squash. Its bright, mild, yet rich orange flesh quickly became a creamy cornerstone of New England kitchens, long before processed foods were even a concept. Unlike fragile varieties that needed perfect conditions, the Boston marrow thrived in the often harsh, cooler climates, climbing fences and sprawling along trellises as if determined to claim every inch of space. Its versatility made it invaluable to pioneers. When roasted, it offered a creamy sweetness that easily rivaled pumpkin. In soups and thick stews, it provided the essential hardiness needed during the coldest, darkest months. For families that lived entirely by what they grew, this squash wasn't just food. It was comfort, warmth, and resilience itself. Its reputation spread rapidly during the 19th century because it offered excellent storage. A properly harvested Boston marrow could last all the way through the winter, its hard shell protecting the tender, golden flesh inside. Yet among all the hardy, practical squashes of the 1800s, one variety stood completely apart, grown not for the dinner table or the cellar, but solely for sheer, shocking size. Atlantic giant pumpkin, the carnival of giants. Some plants are grown not for the table or the cellar, but for sheer size and spectacle. The Atlantic giant pumpkin is the king of them all. Under the right conditions, this massive heirloom can easily tip the scales at well over 200 pounds, transforming a humble garden patch into a carnival of giants. Farmers grow these colossal squashes for pride and competition. From county fairs to global weigh-offs, these events crown champion growers every season, celebrating nature's power pushed to the absolute brink. To watch one of these pumpkins swell day by day is astonishing. They can gain up to 40 pounds in peak conditions. With smooth orange skin and a footprint that can rival a bathtub, the Atlantic giant is a force of nature. In fact, the current world record stands at an astonishing 2,749 pounds. While the flesh can be used in soups or animal feed, most gardeners admit the true draw is the thrill of the harvest, the sense of awe at coaxing something so immense from the soil. The Atlantic giant is a magnificent showpiece, a living trophy that reminds us of the endless possibilities in the dirt. But we leave the ground-level spectacle now for a crop that shot straight toward the sky. Slender, proud, and crowned with a surprising, tender fruit that thrived in the southern heat. Cowhorn okra, the 8-foot spire. In the long, warm fields of the American South, the cowhorn okra grew tall and proud, stretching up to 8 feet into the air like green spires reaching for the sun. This heirloom variety earned its name from its long, curving pods which resemble the shape of a cow's horn. For generations of Southern cooks, cowhorn okra was cherished for its versatility. It brought warmth and comfort to family tables, whether fried, crispy, stewed down, or simmered deep into a hearty gumbo. But for the farmers, its true value was its survival trait. While many okra varieties turn tough and inedible if left on the stalk too long, the cowhorn remains remarkably tender, even at impressive lengths, sometimes over a foot. In the days before refrigeration, this trait was absolutely invaluable. Families could return to the garden day after day, confident that the pods would still be tender enough to enjoy. This meant far fewer wasted harvests and significantly more food gathered from each single plant. With stalks that soared above most gardeners' heads, the cowhorn okra became a living reminder of abundance and a steady provider throughout the peak of summer heat. And while the okra reached skyward, sprawling across the unforgiving southern ground nearby was another giant, striped like its namesake, massive as a small child, and sweet enough to sustain entire communities. Georgia rattlesnake, watermelon striped summer insurance. Striped like a rattlesnake, massive as a small child, and sweet enough to feed whole families. The Georgia rattlesnake watermelon earned its name not from venom, but from the vivid green patterns that curled down its length. To 19th century farmers, those stripes were a promise of abundance. First grown in the South during the early 1800s, this heirloom quickly became a staple at market stalls and family gatherings. Its vines stretched endlessly, producing fruits so massive they could weigh up to 50 pounds each. For settlers working the land in the sweltering heat, these melons were more than just refreshing treats. They were powerful symbols of survival and hydration that sustained communities through summers that withered less hardy crops. But what truly set this watermelon apart was its incredible longevity. While many melons spoil within days of picking, the Georgia rattlesnake was famous for its ability to store for weeks. Families would keep them cool in root cellars, slicing them open long after harvest and tasting the peak of summer even as the first frosts arrived. It was a generous gift that bridged the seasons, a fruit with endurance written into its very flesh. But while this watermelon promised sweetness and abundance, our final humble root crop thrived on an entirely different strength, one that, despite its modesty, became a global icon of endurance through famine and war. Purple top turnip, WWI's quiet hero. Not all legendary crops earned their fame with size or sweetness. Some, like the purple top white globe turnip, became powerful icons of endurance. Its round white root, brushed with a subtle blush of purple where it meets the sun, may look unassuming, but for centuries, it has been one of the most reliable foods in the farmer's arsenal. This variety is cold hardy and quick to grow, thriving in climates where more delicate vegetables simply failed. When early frosts swept across the fields, families could still count on rows of purple tops to survive, their roots swelling beneath the soil, while their leafy greens provided a second, equally valuable food source. This dual harvest made the turnip indispensable for households trying to stretch limited land into year-round sustenance. Historically, the turnip was often a peasant's food, but in times of global crisis, it saved nations. During the infamous turnip winter of World War I Germany, it was hardy varieties like this that kept entire communities from starvation. The purple top white globe turnip never truly disappeared because reliability never goes out of fashion. Today, farmers and gardeners still plant it, not just for tradition, but because its mild, versatile root and nutritious greens offer dependable harvest in an unpredictable world. It's a quiet hero, a resilient thread connecting us to those who survived on grit and the power of a simple, sturdy seed. These heirlooms remind us that the greatest strength is often found in the things big agriculture tried to forget. In a world chasing speed and uniformity, these crops whisper of endurance, patience, and the power of diversity written in the soil. These forgotten crops whisper of endurance. If you found a living piece of history in this list, hit like and tell us which heirloom surprised you most in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the secrets of the garden.